Brandon, you're muted.
Sorry about that. We'll jump into introductions real quick. So I'm Brandon Urich. I am the head of solutions at Classy Llama. So I run our solutions architect discipline, have been involved in several automotive projects and parts related projects over the 5.5 years that I've been at Classy Llama, and been doing e-commerce a little bit longer than that. So I've been working on BigCommerce for the last about 3 years or so, and have been in the automotive, kind of jumped into that probably around 2016 or so. Kind of started working with some automotive merchants in e-commerce. So looking forward to talking about my experiences, our agency's experiences, and some of the things that we're seeing that can help automotive merchants. I'll let Ryan introduce himself.
All right, thanks, Brandon. My name is Ryan Stout, and currently I'm a senior account executive here at BigCommerce. So, my job is to assist our merchants as they're coming onto the platform to understand all the complexities that are involved with, especially the automotive industry. A little bit about my background: I was actually in the military for a few years, did my service there, and then I joined the fire department and ran into burning buildings for a short period of time before deciding that I wanted to get into the automotive industry. So I've actually had a couple of different companies in the automotive industry, and I'm still the CEO of Stout Industries, as well as my role here at BigCommerce. So we can dig into that a little bit more later, but I'm very familiar with the automotive industry from both firsthand experience as well as working here with BigCommerce and teams like Classy Llama.
Great, thanks, Ryan. So just a little bit about Classy Llama. Our kind of statement here is we're a values-based agency of digital commerce veterans passionate about helping merchants leverage technology to sustainably grow, build, and optimize their business. We've been doing that for about 14 years and have originally kind of been focused on development, but as e-commerce has become more sophisticated, more complex, kind of have more, different variety of needs that have come across our awareness from different clients. We've over the years built out different services to kind of attach to that core development focused competency around design and UX, digital marketing, strategy and consulting. We've been doing a lot more of strategy and consulting these days, just because there's a lot of different things for merchants to navigate, from ADA compliance to CCPA compliance to, what's kind of the best new front-end technology to use to build my site? How do I best integrate with all my different systems? Or maybe companies going through digital transformation of some kind that they're not really sure what to do next. So we've been doing a lot more of that lately, but our kind of core, kind of how we cut our teeth on e-commerce as an agency has been more of the solving the technical problems through development and architecting good solutions. And some of those over the years, because of our working with several e-commerce merchants, have been related to some of the challenges that are unique to that industry. So we're not afraid to kind of jump in and solve some of those unique challenges and tackle some of those maybe non-standard things that not every agency has to deal with. So that's who we are, and then I'll let Ryan talk a little bit about BigCommerce.
Thank you. Yeah, so BigCommerce, our vision is to be the #1 e-commerce platform that exists in the world today. And we do that in a couple key ways. Number one is that we make sure that 100% of our investment is going back into the back into the system, to the actual architecture of the e-commerce platform. And then we link with best-in-breed partners, Classy Llama as being a perfect example of that, but also from the perspective of an app marketplace. And so the system is designed to be very malleable. And we do that because every business has different needs. A coffee business that's doing subscriptions and you're getting a bag of coffee every couple of weeks versus an automotive business versus a firearms business versus somebody who sells shirts. All of those businesses are extremely different in the way that their back-end processes work, taxation works, et cetera. And so rather than building a defined box that you have to then go fit your business into, instead what we've done is we operate more like a general contractor. And our job is to work with development firms like Classy Llama to be able to segment all the different components that you may need, whether that's advanced tax software, advanced product software like a PIM, be able to connect to your ERP, et cetera. And we can dive into that a little bit more as we go through the call today. But I think the main thing to know is that BigCommerce is a system that is designed specifically to be able to modularly connect with outside systems that you may be using for your business and really be able to surface that data, especially in the automotive industry. We all are aware of the complexities that exist within that data model. So again, we'll get into that a little bit more, but that's just a high level overview of the BigCommerce ecosystem as we move forward.
Cool, thanks, Ryan. All right, so let's jump into our topic here. So our first talking point, and I'll say, we've got a little bit of a smaller group today on the call. I'm actually calling in from Chicago at the Retail X conference. So if you happen to be in Chicago and at joining the conference at Retail X, you can stop by the Classy Llama booth, and I'll be there this afternoon. But we want to start by talking about product data from an e-commerce standpoint. Starting with a good foundation is always going to help you avoid complications later on. And with automotive, product data has its own kind of unique needs and requirements. So kind of talk through some of the points here, but I do want this to be an opportunity for everyone to maybe ask any specific questions that they might have. So if you want to drop any questions into the chat, feel free to do that. And we're also going to have kind of an open Q&A at the end where you can just ask your questions on the microphone and everything, since we have a smaller group. So feel free to jump in and ask any questions or contribute to the conversation. So in preparing your product data, kind of wanted to walk through a few of the key things to be thinking about. If you're considering moving to a new e-commerce platform, maybe you're in a position where you are not really focusing on e-commerce or haven't in the past, and looking to enhance your ability to sell online. There are a number of different things here that could be beneficial to think about. So when you think about automotive specific e-commerce product data, fitment and application data are is probably kind of the main thing that comes to the forefront of that topic, being a unique point about automotive products that most platforms don't really have a way to handle out of the box. And so how do you best manage that, especially with larger catalogs? We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that here in a moment, because that is a pretty substantial topic for the automotive industry. So, but we want to talk through kind of some best practices to get your product data in a good place. So fitment application data is obviously one of those. Product titles. So thinking about your product titles and how you're setting those up in your data is important. Generally, you want to have a combination of a good, consistent description that kind of you use across your entire catalog, where maybe you start with like the brand, the name of the product, and like a specific attribute that kind of describes that product. Like, a X brand muffler, and then an attribute of maybe the size or a specific feature of that actually in the title, because that's going to help with SEO. It's going to be it's going to make things really clear for customers to see. So using things like part numbers and things like that, they're going to be less like useful to the shopper, is not the best way to do that. Sticking with product titles that are really intentional and informative, and consistent kind of across your catalog. So that's something that you can kind of standardize across the board. Thinking about your parts categories and how those are set up in terms of the shopping experience. Making sure that your categories you're trying to avoid having like duplicate categories, and you're really thinking through that taxonomy of how those are organized, is another important thing, both from a navigation standpoint and then also from the standpoint of filtering and things like that, and potentially impacting your URLs as well. So those are some of the things that go into really planning out your category structure. And then part photos. So an important thing with part photos is, a lot of times you can get stock images from manufacturers. If you can do it, doing in-house photography is going to give you the ability to set yourself apart from other competitors. There are a variety of different resources on how to take good product photography online. Between Google and YouTube, you can find a lot of different tips. They do make various different like backdrops and light boxes and things like that can be used to give like a consistent kind of white background, good simple product image. And they even make solutions that you can do like multiple angles and things like that really quickly. Machines that you can kind of plop a product in, it'll take multiple pictures and then kick out the images, to make that quicker if you're trying to go through a lot of different products and take those pictures at different angles. So if you can build your own product photography, that's definitely helpful. And doing that in a consistent way across your catalog, again, will just make the site design look and feel more cohesive. Moving into descriptions. So again, this is another area where there's a lot of boilerplate content out there from the manufacturers. And I've also seen a lot of automotive sites that really don't even have descriptions, that just kind of rely on the part number and maybe a couple of attributes. If you can write descriptions, maybe contract with a copywriter to identify like your top categories and kind of go through, and usually you'll need to have somebody who knows about the products just kind of take an initial pass at writing, and then have somebody who's good at copy editing go through and kind of clean that up and create a consistent kind of voice to communicate through. That's a simple way to do that. Obviously, you can go kind of in further depth of from a branding standpoint and how you're communicating and all that. But at the baseline, just having some more informative product descriptions that just speak to the customer and state what the product is and why it's useful. You can also add in details about maybe why your specific brand, your company likes that product, or something that's maybe more tailored to like your specific set of clients that you target. So you can kind of custom tailor that content to your brand and make that description something unique that, again, you're kind of setting yourself apart from the competition if it's parts that other people sell. And all this information, if you're a manufacturer versus just a distributor, this information, is probably something that you're going to use on your website, but also in other areas of your business. So keeping that all in a consistent place and building that up over time is going to be something that, is beneficial in the long run. I'll stop and see, Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add to any of those topics before I continue through the list here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a whole lot to unpack, obviously, with data. Fitment application data, I think everybody's probably at least fairly familiar with, whether it be SEMA Data Co-op or ACES and PIEs information, and being able to surface that data within BigCommerce. And we can really dive into that a little bit more and kind of go through that. But you mentioned product titles as well. And one of the key things from the product title standpoint is when somebody comes to your website and they're looking for specifics. And a lot of times in the automotive industry, people are fairly knowledgeable about what they're looking for, especially in the aftermarket. So if I'm coming to the site, and Brandon, like you said, an exhaust, if I'm coming to the site and I know that I have, X truck, I've got a Ford Excursion, I want a 3-inch exhaust, I want it aluminized, or I want it in aluminum, or I would like 409 stainless, whatever it may be, making sure that that information is in the title will allow a customer like myself to be able to come to the site, type in, I have a Ford Excursion and I want, an aluminum exhaust in 3-inch, and immediately those products can be surfaced. That kind of falls into product categories as well, because you can do like a left-hand navigation search, be able to say, I have, pick your truck from your make model search, and then you can go in and say, I want an exhaust. I want them to be aluminum or stainless. I want 3-inch, and you can surface the product that way as well. So there's always a couple of different ways to achieve the goal of finding the product that you're looking for. But within BigCommerce, at least, we search the product title first, then we search the SKU, and on down. So we have a hierarchical structure of how we actually do that data search, and making sure that, if you can add that information to the product title, that's pretty critical. So I think those are kind of the main things that I wanted to add on those. You mentioned YouTube is a really good resource too, and we kind of are starting to look into those installation instructions / videos. And I think all of us have at least probably one degree in YouTube University. I know I've got a few. So being able to allow your customers to come in and get their own degree from YouTube University about the specific part that they're buying from you is really critical. And I know that I'm still heavily involved in the automotive world, from towing a trailer to going off-roading to having race cars and things of that nature. And I will never claim to be an expert in any of those fields, especially automotive, as it's constantly changing and evolving. I mean, electric cars are taking over the world now. And so YouTube University is always a really good place. And I will purposefully shop on stores that give me that kind of additional data so that I don't have to go search for it elsewhere. I can have a single source of truth for not only purchasing the parts, but having the education and instructions to get those installed on my vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, YouTube, and even having those videos right on the product page is pretty powerful. And I'm sure most people on the call here have shopped that way, where there's an informative video right there on the page and it tells you what you need to know. It increases that confidence in the product that you're buying the right thing, that you're going to be able to install it. It's going to look the way you want it to look, and definitely a big benefit. Obviously, a little more overhead to produce those, but if you can get kind of a consistent pattern set up and do that again, start with the set of products that you want to target and move through those, and over time, you'll build up a good collection of content that can be useful long term.
Yeah, using the enhanced analytics tools too. BigCommerce comes with some pretty strong analytics tools, and then of course with enhanced e-commerce analytics through Google, who we're integrated with, you can really start diving in and understand, what products do you have that might be a bit more complex or have the appearance of being a bit more complex. Think again, as an off-road guy, I always think of like a snorkel for your vehicle, being able to put that on. How hard is it going to be? Am I going to need to go to a shop to get that done? And starting to look at the total cost of ownership of, X part, whether it be a lowering springs or a lift kit or an exhaust. is there going to be an external cost to me, the consumer, post-purchase of having to take that to a shop and get it installed, and being able to see that video and go, no, you know what, I have the capability to do what this video is showing. Number one, that's going to lead to an enhanced conversion on your side. But as you go through and you start realizing, okay, these are the types of products that a YouTube video can enhance conversion, then you can go into the analytics tools and take a look and see, well, what are my buying cycles like? What items do I have that are selling pretty heavily that this might add additional conversion to? So, again, with BigCommerce, you will have a CSM or a customer success manager tied to your account. And those individuals are trained to specifically be able to walk you through and show you how to use those analytical tools to achieve a goal like this.
Yeah, very good. Ryan, do you want to talk on the compliance topic as well? That's something you experience with.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think I think we've all been familiar with CARB for a while now, and there are, it's been a topic of conversation since I first opened my shop over 10 years ago, and it just continues to get more and more intense. And all of us are probably familiar with the Diesel brothers and the multi-million-dollar lawsuit that almost put them out of business because they were selling tuners for diesels. And, it was simply a matter of a compliance issue. And I don't want to say it could have been easily rectified. Dealing with the government is always an issue. But, being able to make sure that all the right CARB information and the PDF documents and, all those compliance documents are attached to a product on the PDP. So on that physical product page, being able to see your installation instructions, your CARB instructions, being able to notify a customer that this is an off-road part only. It's up to them what they want to do with it, but you have to be in compliance with the laws. And unfortunately, those laws are changing at a rapid pace currently. There's bills in right now to completely annihilate the ability for a customer to build a race car out of anything that was manufactured by one of the large manufacturers. It has to be built specifically to be a race car. I don't think any of us think that that's actually going to go through, but the fact that it's even being talked about is pretty massive for the industry. And so, being able to, at a minimum, be compliant with what they're trying to do today is going to be critical. And we can walk through any of that we need to, but I know that there's a lot to unpack. But with BigCommerce, we do allow you to attach all that documentation, whether it be, again, there's always a couple different paths. It's a matter of which one works best for your business, your processes, et cetera. But we can either attach those documents directly to the product page, or what we found is a lot of merchants also want to have a separate library where they can go into the library, type in a SKU or a part number or a title, and then be taken specifically to the documentation for those parts. And I think a lot of that is really dependent on, are you direct to consumer product page? Are you B2B having that separate external library? So, is there anything else there, Brandon, that you really think we should unpack?
Yeah, I think that kind of segues into, on the compliance side, there may even be things you're dealing with from like state to state restrictions. It's kind of becoming more common. And so flexibility in like shipping rules and things like that is also a very beneficial thing to be able to leverage. One of the things we mentioned here too is weights and dimensions, and having good data from that standpoint is going to allow you to build like shipping rules and sometimes shipping restrictions, where if there's a particular part that you can't ship to a certain state or a certain country or whatever, being able to set those restrictions up. So, one thing I know is like with BigCommerce, there's a variety of different shipping solutions that integrate with the platform natively or through third-party apps that allow you to configure different shipping rules and things like that. And having weights and dimensions will allow you to get real-time shipping quotes to your customers. Obviously, one of the things that can be challenging with the parts is you may have oversized parts or things that have to go, certain type of shipping method. So being able to kind of configure all those rules and have that flexibility on the platform you're working with is really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's key. The LTL shipping has always been, at least when in my experience, we did a lot of motors and transmissions, and in my experience, the LTL shipping on e-com can be a struggle. We'll just call it a struggle. So a lot of times there's a lot of manual back-end work that's having to happen post e-commerce sale, and we all know that anytime manual work is involved, there's going to be errors, and that error-prone issue, especially when you're talking LTL or very expensive shipping, can be pretty major. So having those modular shipping capabilities where we can plug in various solutions on the back end that can handle LTL shipping and all of those things, like you say, that's critical to being able to have a very automated e-commerce experience.
Yeah. Cool. So we will move on to the next topic here. So fitment, we kind of briefly touched on this, but we'll spend a little bit more time because this is such a interesting component of the automotive industry, and especially for automotive, but it applies to any type of parts sales and anything where you're dealing with year, make, and model or similar applications. So a couple of the things we want to talk through in terms of fitment is just the what it provides from a shopping experience. Obviously, if you're in the automotive industry and you sell parts, you're aware of this concept, and a lot of us have probably shopped on Amazon or eBay or other places that have the ability to shop by year, make, and model. But the benefits of fitment are some that are more apparent than others. Obviously, the shopping experience is really important. Having a fitment solution that's easy for customers to use, to identify what they're buying for, what vehicle they have, and there's a number of different things that kind of go into that. How those products get filtered on the front end, how that fitment, the vehicle that you've selected, kind of follows you throughout your shopping journey as you're browsing the site. So the shopping experience can really benefit from having that fitment selection built into the site, to allow customers to really drill down to and be confident that what they're buying is going to fit the vehicle that they're buying it for. And then from an SEO standpoint, a lot of times what we've done is had the fitment applications, the vehicles that a particular part supports, like listed on the product detail page itself. And so that data can be indexed by search engines, so that it's actually usable by Google, and when people are searching for products on their search engine. So from an SEO standpoint, it can be beneficial to use that information to add additional SEO equity onto your pages, and also in your URLs. If you can add the fitment data in, URLs can be interesting because there's a lot of kind of strategy that goes into that. There's not necessarily a kind of one size fits all solution there. A lot of it depends on maybe where you're coming from, and how your catalog is set up, and a variety of different things. But that's something that we do at the beginning of every project, is do kind of an SEO audit and a strategy, so that we can determine things like, how does your URL structure need to play into this? How does your catalog category taxonomy need to be playing into this? And what are different things we need to make sure we're doing inside of the project to make sure that we're looking out for SEO. It's really important to have a good strategy for that on the front end. Any feedback on that, Ryan, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things for us about SEO is, that I mean, obviously, in the developer, Classy Llama is going to be the ones that's actually doing the work, but we've built into the system a really complex system for the URL. So basically, every single URL is user definable. Whether you want that URL to be super simple, or like Brandon's saying, we want to have fitment data potentially in those URLs. So BigCommerce is a bit unique in the fact that we allow you complete and total control of what that URL structure looks like. And then it's just a matter of understanding, from the complexity of the data, do you have, and this kind of really delves into a whole nother area, but really it's a matter of, are you selling parts broad spectrum? Are you basically selling everything that you can get on a World Pack or something along those lines? Do you have brakes for Hondas and BMWs and Mercedes and across the line? Or are you really structured down to, somebody that does, let's say, a rooftop tent, or that really specializes in Porsche? And so you sell just Porsche stuff. So there's a whole lot of different ways that the data needs to be manipulated within the system based on the overall data size. Is that a good way of putting that there, Brandon?
Yeah. Like you said, the number of categories you have, the number of parts you have, the number of vehicles that you support, all of those things are going to play into that. And so, like I said, there's definitely not a one size fits all solution, but having tools that give you the flexibility to do what you need to do and make those kind of tweaks to fit your strategy is very important, because you can definitely get locked into, you have to do it this way, and that might not be the best way for your business.
Yeah. So like you said, doing that SEO audit at the very beginning is going to give us a really good idea of, again, there's multiple pathways to the goal of getting you online. What's the yellow brick road specifically for your business, your data, your complexity, and kind of running down that path. But with BigCommerce, we give, from a variance is a good example. We have, 16 variants with a total of 16,000 down the line. Categories is similar. I know, comparative to some of the other platforms that exist out there, we have a hierarchical strategy for our categories that goes eight categories deep and has a total of 16,000 categories across the entirety of whatever you have on the system. So being able to come in and, again, use that left-hand search to say, well, I have engines. Well, I want 4-cylinder engines. I want gas or diesel. And being able to really go down that strategy and give your customers a really seamless, easy kind of what you would call typical, or that Amazon experience that everybody's searching for, being able to go to that left-hand navigation and really drive down to the products that matter, the products that I'm coming here to look for, and take, rather than your entire products catalog that you have to search through, but really fine tune what I'm looking for so that I can have a very easy, quick, simple buying experience. So anybody that wants to have any additional information on some of those SEO capabilities, drop me a line and let me know, and I can push over some information specific from the BigCommerce support documents, and you can really read through and get some additional context there.
Yeah, and we're talking filtering and things like that. That kind of goes right into data management, having all your product attributes set up in a way that they can be used to filter down. When it comes to fitment, this is a common, it's something that can be difficult for not only merchants to wrap their head around, but also developers and agencies if they haven't really worked with it a lot. So on the fitment side of things, data management is a big deal in automotive, because you get to the point where if you have a lot of products and a lot of vehicles you support, that really can become unmanageable pretty quickly. If you have a part that fits 10 different year, make, model combinations, it's really not, most e-commerce, or really all e-commerce platforms that I've seen, are not really suited to handling year, make, and model in the data structure. You can do that at a smaller scale. So out of the box, usually using things like custom fields or categories can support that at a certain scale. But at some point, you may need to move off to a dedicated fitment database for your vehicles. So we've worked with clients on setting that up. The nice thing about BigCommerce as a platform is it's very flexible, and the APIs that are provided you're able to kind of pipe data in and out of the system as needed. And so we've set up a kind of a separate private app that has its own database that holds all your vehicle information. And in some cases that is needed. Again, there's not a one size fits all necessarily here, but we've worked with merchants who maybe use a PIM to hold their vehicle information, or they use like a private app, like I was describing, or maybe it's in their ERP, or maybe it's coming from another third-party solution that you're using for providing data. That can be integrated through the BigCommerce API and through the front end of the platform. You can build that into the shopping experience. So it's something that you want to make sure that whoever the developers are, agency that you're working with, does have experience dealing with fitment data, because it can be something, and I've seen this, where that gets architected poorly and it becomes a nightmare for the merchant to manage as their catalog grows, and over time it can just become unmanageable. So having a true fitment data model that stores your year, make, and model with vehicle IDs in an isolated environment, and then links that up with your e-commerce platform product data is usually the best way to do that we've found. And like I said, that vehicle data can come from a variety of different sources depending on how you manage that information.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, I want to elaborate on just a couple of things there. So, like you said, possibly using a PIM to house some of that product data, that may be coming from a SEMA data co-op or Aces and Pies, where again, you're utilizing your product list is large and broad spectrum. There's also the ability to do a hybrid approach, because I know that there's a lot of automotive sellers out there who not only are resellers, but also manufacturers. And so, when we were talking earlier about utilizing the custom fields for some of that data for somebody that's small, like somebody that's just holding, selling Porsche suspension. So it's one make across some years, selling a few parts. That's really easy to house that data natively in BigCommerce. So let's say that you're a truck part reseller and you're selling lift kits and brakes across, Chevy, Dodge, Ford, Toyota, all broad spectrum. That data can come from one of those softwares into a PIM, but then you also might manufacture some tents that go on the back of these vehicles. That product data can just be housed in native BigCommerce. So you don't necessarily have to feed your data to one of those large data outlets and then have that data pulled back in. We can operate in a bit of a hybrid approach there. And then I wanted to unpack too, anytime we start talking about external systems, there's always in the back of everybody's mind the thought of, wow, this is going to be really slow. And so one of the key things and a big differentiator for BigCommerce is our API speed. So typically we're looking at API speeds, of 10 calls a second. With BigCommerce, we're looking at 400 API calls a second at a minimum for our enterprise customers, with unlimited overall calls. So about 40 times faster than our nearest competition. So it's a significant differentiator for BigCommerce. Like I said at the beginning of the call, our system is specifically built to connect modularly to your external systems in order to build the e-commerce platform that works specifically for you, your use cases, your business processes, et cetera. And because we've been built specifically to do that, we have the API speeds to be able to pull that data in extremely quickly. So I just want to make sure that we're pointing that out so that nobody has in the back of their mind the potential of this being a bottleneck.
Yeah, and to Ryan's point about Aces and Pies data, if you're getting that from somewhere, from a data management standpoint, that's the industry standard. Is if you haven't dealt with that, definitely do research on the Aces and Pies standard. But It's something that is becoming more and more common, even for even if you're not like getting syndicated data or providing syndicated data out. Just structuring your data kind of in that standard is going to make your life easier in the long run. And it's as your business expands and you add more product lines and things like that, you know, if you're getting data from other sources, having that consistent standard that's followed. So, you know, anytime, again, if you're working with an agency that really understands how that data typically looks, if you're setting up your vehicle data and your parts data in the platform, you want to try to align to those standards, and maybe you're already getting your data all in that format, and that's great. But it's definitely something to make a part of your data management strategy. And then on the topic of search, you know, again, this kind of depends on how you tackle the fitment. If you're doing that just with the built-in categories and built-in platform capability if you're kind of at a smaller size catalog, that is less tricky. If you have a larger catalog and need to be able to manage the fitment data externally, being able to tie that back into your search results. BigCommerce does have built-in search capabilities, as well as multiple third-party kind of enhanced search solutions in the App Store that are available, that can have a variety of different kind of third-party data sources added in to your search capabilities. So that's something to definitely look at in terms of providing that better shopping experience. Is what do you need out of your search? How do your customers need to search for products? And having the flexibility to kind of, again, tailor that solution to what your business needs. All right, let's see here. I was gonna check the chat because I realized that it wasn't letting me know. Looks like
yeah, we've got a couple questions in there.
Chatting. Okay. Did you want to address any of those, Ryan, or?
Yeah, so the one, you know, Kelly, like I said, just shoot me an email. Let's have a longer discussion afterwards. Like, as you can tell, as we've been chatting today, the complexity of the data is interesting, and every single customer, every single merchant is going to have a different data need. So I'd really like to unpack that, and I think that's a longer conversation than we have time for today. But Jen, the question you have about, does this app, you know, the PIM or whatever app we're talking about using, does it surface on other platforms? The short answer to that is yes. Most of these PIMs are going to be capable of being used on different systems. Think, you know, a Magento or a Shopify. But as I've said a couple of times during the call today, our system is architected in a very specific way, and it's built specifically to connect to these outside systems. So we typically have pre-integrated single-click install apps is what we call them. So you can basically click on one of these, it automatically uploads it to the system, and you're kind of ready to go. There's going to be some mapping and some other things that Class Llama is going to have to get done for you, but from the get-go, it's just a very simple install, and then we manage support, updates, patches, you know, all of those things that would kind of fall on you on some of the other platforms that exist out there. So I think that the total cost of ownership of utilizing one of these on BigCommerce is going to be lower, not only from the perspective of how much is it going to cost to build and integrate, because we've already done that, but how much is it going to cost to support, because we're also doing that for you as well.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we'll move right into talking a little bit more about future-proofing your website. And we're talking with BigCommerce today. One of the reasons Classy Llama has chosen to work with BigCommerce is just because of some of the benefits that the platform provides for growing merchants, kind of that mid-market merchant who maybe has a little bit more complex catalog or complex requirements that some of the more, simple e-commerce platforms may have trouble scaling to support, or may have limitations that you really, have more difficulty working around. And that tends to be more of the case in an environment where automotive commonly, runs into different challenges that are a little bit more unique than if you're selling clothing or something like that. So that's one of the reasons why Classy Llama works with BigCommerce as a preferred platform. And Ryan already talked a little bit about the API, so we won't dig into that too much. We've already touched on it, but it's definitely one of the benefits of BigCommerce. But looking at any platform that you're looking to select, making sure that the platform is built in a way that it's designed to be easily integrated with. And this can be an area that can be difficult unless you're a developer or relying on a developer to kind of vet that. But, working with an agency that understands your industry and what the needs are of that industry, and helping kind of make those recommendations for the solutions to use can be a way to make sure that you're making the right choices there. The other thing is a partner ecosystem. So, BigCommerce and Classy Llama have a good partnership. There's a lot of other tech partners out there who are kind of a part of that ecosystem, from shipping solutions to product information management solutions, ERPs, app marketplace. We have a variety of different contacts in a lot of those kind of go-to solutions that we know work well in an automotive setting. And so, being an agency where we work with a lot of different merchants, we have the ability to kind of know what's out there, make recommendations, kind of help guide to the right solution. And BigCommerce does as well. They have a partner ecosystem with partner management reps who are constantly working with different tech partners and making sure that BigCommerce has the right relationships with the right vendors out there. And some of these, there are multiple different solutions that you could go with that have pre-built and easy integrations with BigCommerce right out of the box that makes setting up that tech stack a lot easier than if you were to have to go and build custom integrations for everything. So that's something we can kind of help guide on, BigCommerce can help guide on, and we can really work together with the merchant to make sure that we're recommending the right solutions for the specific needs. And then having a flexible front end, again, this just goes back to the shopping experience and kind of representing your brand online. The ability to provide a unique shopping experience, but also have it be easy to implement on, is really beneficial. Some of the things that we like about BigCommerce is just the ability to customize it. It's fairly wide open in terms of how you can customize your page templates and things like that, but it also provides a good kind of out of the box design that if you don't want to spend a ton of time customizing, you do have the ability to use some of the pre-built templates. They do have a GraphQL API, which is a more front-end friendly API that provides data up very fast and in a very useful way for developers to make it faster to develop custom features or custom page layouts if needed. So that's a benefit and kind of one of those checkboxes that is good to look at in terms of the flexibility of the platform of having GraphQL capability, because that's really where the development industry is moving in terms of web development is leveraging that newer API technology. And then standard web languages. So BigCommerce is built in a way that you don't have to learn any like custom scripting languages or anything like that to jump in and start doing development. So you're going to be able to, it's a lot more accessible for web developers to use the tools they already know how to work with. And that's definitely a benefit for less overhead, easier to find folks who can work on the site, whether that's an internal resource or agencies, developers. Different content authoring tools is important. The ability to create like landing pages and customize your product details, things like that with rich content. So having the page builder tool in BigCommerce is really helpful with drag and drop features where you can create nice looking content without having to write code every time. And then having merchandising tools to be able to show like related products and product recommendations and good product filtering and things like that. Ryan, did you want to add anything to that list?
Yeah, a little bit. The ability to customize, I think the one thing that I want to really point out is that the BigCommerce ecosystem, again, is there's a differentiation between some of our competition as far as the ability to customize. So literally every pixel on the page is customizable on BigCommerce, whether that be the landing page, the product page, the checkout, or the cart. And I know that that's a pretty big differentiator to the systems that some of you may be on today, where your cart experience can still feel like they're in your store. And I always equate this back to e-com is a lot like brick and mortar. You still want people to come to your front doors, which is that landing page. You want them to open the door, go in. You want to lead them through a product journey that's going to convert. You want them to buy different things along that journey. And then when they go to the checkout, you don't want them to have to go outside and walk down the street and go to a checkout. You want them to check out in your store. You still want the paint colors on the wall to look the same. You want it to be people wearing your uniform at the cash register. And so the ability to customize that cart experience to still be your experience is really key to a lot of merchants. And I know that's not huge for everybody, but for a lot of the merchants that we talk to, it's really a big differentiator. And then also going into that checkout experience and, maybe being able to authorize a payment when, especially for manufacturers, being able to authorize a payment the moment somebody orders it, but then to hold that payment and capture at a later time when fulfillment is happening or something along those lines is something that's very easy to do on BigCommerce. So I know that that's potentially a big key to some of the people that are on the call today. And then the other one is from the content tools, the ability to build content and then have that content timed for future release. And so that way you're not up at midnight doing your Black Friday sale or whatever you may have going on. We've got both the page builder, which allows you to build an entire page and then release that page at a certain day and time. And then we also have the promotions engine, where you can build a promotion, whether it be spend X, get something free, or spend X, get $5 off, whatever it may be. That's a really easy tool to work through. And you can time those as well. So if you want a sale to come out at midnight, you don't need to be up at midnight going to the computer to push a button. You can just time everything, let it release. And the promotions engine for the automotive industry, I know, is pretty critical. We did a lot of promotions on our store. And so you can see any documentation there at support.bigcommerce.com and then just search promotions and it'll take you through exactly how to build the promotions. You're going to be amazed at how quick and easy it is.
Yep. And I'll touch on B2B real quick. I know we're close on time, but we'll open it up for questions here after this. B2B is a very common thing in the automotive space that we've been a part of. There's probably just as many, if not more, B2B scenarios than just the straight direct to consumer scenarios in terms of clients that we've worked with. So having the ability to actually provide good business to business selling tools like different types of payment methods, maybe like POs and net terms or different options that might not be relevant to consumers. Being able to manage company users differently than just a standard web login where you can actually attach those users to a company and then having segmentation and price lists and different abilities to provide unique shopping features to a particular company is always important. So BigCommerce does have B2B edition. It's got some added on features that you can take advantage of if you're selling business to business as well. Cool. Well, we made it through the list of topics that we wanted to touch on, but we want to open it up to any questions. Let me see if I can. Let's see if I can unmute. I think.
Jen, I saw you unmuted. Did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
I think you guys are open to unmute yourself and talk if you have a question. So.
Well, Brandon, we did such a good job of covering all the bullet points today that nobody has any questions.
There you go. If anybody wants to drop any questions in the chat as well, that's still open. So we can hang out for another 5 minutes or so. If anybody wants to pop a question in, happy to address that.
Yeah, David, I saw you unmute. Did you have a question for us?
I don't want the rest of your 5 minutes to be boring, guys. Reference to ACEs and PIs or SEMA product data, SEMA cobot data, what is your recommendation on the best approach to build the foundation to facilitate those capabilities?
In terms of structuring your data in that way, or in terms of getting data in from a provider?
Assuming one has the data, we're a manufacturer, so we create data. But in terms of organizing that and initiating that process, what's your best recommendation? Just external compilation of data, or what's your best first step in that process?
Yeah, Ryan, I don't know if you want to touch on this at all. I've got a couple of use cases that I can talk about.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll elaborate.
Okay. I mean, probably one of the more common things that we see is using a PIM first of all to manage that data can be an advantage. Of usually it's either managed in like spreadsheets or in a database of some kind that maybe you have internally, and then imported into the e-commerce platform. We've worked with a company called PDM, which is an automotive specific PIM, and I have heard good feedback on that solution. There are a number of different automotive specific PIMs out there that have the ability to support that data structure more specifically versus just like a universal PIM that's kind of just designed for any type of product data. So having a PIM that focuses on automotive would make that easier. And then having the ability to integrate that. Usually a PIM is really good about having import export, making that pretty fluid. And if it's an automotive specific PIM, it probably has integrations with some of those other industry solutions already. So that's a good place to start. I do know that there are some other things out there. Like, for example, we've worked with Acumatica as an ERP in the past. And there's actually some automotive specific solutions for managing fitment data and things with some of the partners we've worked with there. So we could kind of help you connect to those resources as well. So it does depend on kind of how you need to manage your business on the back end. But those are a couple places to start. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, you covered that pretty in
Thank
depth.
you, guys.
I don't
Yeah,
have
that's
a whole lot
helpful.
to elaborate on. Go ahead, David.
Do you have any firsthand experience with SEMA data co-op? What's your thoughts there?
Yes, that's something that a lot of merchants are using or migrating to start using. And again, that's where you can get that data, but you have to have a place to store your data. And so that's going to have to live somewhere. And usually doing all of that in the e-commerce platform doesn't make sense. So either doing it in custom database or in a PIM or an ERP of some kind. There are some providers out there, or I guess I'll call them integrators out there that maybe integrate that directly with the e-commerce platform. So that can be an option too. But generally speaking, having something in the middle that data can be viewed and managed and manipulated in is beneficial.
Yeah, and I would agree there. I think whether you're using SEMA data or ACEs and PIs or any of those, I know there's a couple others that exist in more of the aftermarket world. The PIM is really going to be the go-to, and like Brandon says, a PIM that's automotive specific is going to give you a lot of additional tools. Not only being able to grab the data and then surface the data into the e-com platform, but a lot of them are going to come with additional back-end tools that are really key to managing your business. And so a little bit too much to get into today. There's a lot to unpack there, but one of the things that we can do is if you'd like to get a demo of one of these systems, it's something that either Brandon or I can definitely set up for you. And then you can really get an idea of all the additional tools that are brought forward for you, not only from the perspective of surfacing your data appropriately, but also additional back-end tools to help manage inventory and things of that nature utilizing these tools. So they're pretty ingenious in what they do other than just surfacing the data. So, everybody always looks at a PIM as just kind of a connector to some of these systems, but I really think it's worth, if it's something that you're interested in, diving in, taking a demo and really understanding what all it brings to the table. Anybody else have any questions for us today? All right, well, Brandon, I know we're a little over, so I'll let you take the reins here.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. I think we've got contact information on here. So Austin Hovey is one of my counterpoints here at Classy Llama, kind of the first line of defense, and he'll get the right person in touch with you in order to help. A lot of times that's me, especially in the automotive space, because I've been attached to a lot of different things there. But we also have a lot of different specialists in different areas, from SEO to development to digital marketing, that can help with variety of needs. So contact Austin, and he'll be looking forward to hearing from you. And then Ryan, his information is available here as well from BigCommerce. So we will be happy to jump on the phone or reply to an email if you need pointed in the right direction or have any questions or follow up. So appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully this was informative and helpful, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.